On my right, your left, is Dr. Leroy Brady. And Dr. Brady has incredible credits to his experiences and his life's journey and his life's work. And I'll let him tell you those.
I think you're very kind, very kind. I think about the only credit I really want to have is that I am the only son of Maddie Brady. And that's the highest that I have. Now, from there it goes down. I am a PhD. I teach downtown here at San Diego City College in the School of Business. I think of myself as, by day, I am in business, and I teach business. By night, I am a creative soul, and I'm a poet and a photographer, and an artist of I guess, a certain realm. But I love performance poetry, and have been connected with poetry for quite a while as a result, I guess, of the next person that you'll hear from, as a result of Leah, when I joined the African American Writers and Artists. So that's me, and I'm very happy that Alyce asked us to be with her today and to be with all of you. So I'm glad to be here.
This is a family happening, in case you haven't figured this out. And so, to my left and your right is Leah Goodwin. And she's a longtime friend, wonderful poet, incredible art administrator, and I'm going to let her give you more of the particulars of her journey.
Well, I think that we're being ancestral. I am the granddaughter of Ruby Berkeley Goodwin, who was a journalist and a poet and a movie star. And so when you write poetry in my family, they just, of course you write poetry. It's not a big deal, we all write poetry. And the Goodwins have a long standing in San Diego, so I come from a long line of Black pioneers here. And I've been writing poetry since I was 6. I'd love to stop, but it's my healing process. And it's my commentary on the world. And sometimes we hope that this commentary is really all a story, It really is all a story. It's our story, and maybe something will touch a bit of you, and you'll think about something, and then we share that human beingness, and that's what I love about the arts. I create healing environments in hospitals these days, bringing community artists into healthcare environments to bring art and home and family in. And actually, those are my grandparents on the wall in the circle, Braxton, Berkeley, and Sophie. Great. That's amazing. Looked up. I mean, I'm sure they said, hello. We're up here. So we're so happy that you came out to spend your afternoon with us.
Well, this is something that Leah and I have been trying to figure out ever since we've known each other. I come from Riverside, and there's Goodwins in my history, in my family, and there's Goodwins in hers. And so we were trying to figure out how come we're not cousins or something like that, because I really think that we are. But it doesn't matter, because the real good stuff about all of this is that we are all related. There is no separation. And see, I told you. Punctuate that with entrance of. And so we're delighted to have you with us, because you're just making the circle that much tighter. Big City Women was what this was all coalesced around. When Ashley called me and said, we need to do something, and she didn't have to say anything else, because I was inducted into the San Diego County Women's Hall of Fame in 2004. And I think I was nominated by somebody who's sitting in the audience, but it was an anonymous kind of a thing, and so I've never pointed her out for that. But that's one of the things that happens to big city women. Their friends promote them. And so when I was nominated and inducted, I was in a place in my life where, oh, you all don't know anything about this. I have to show you. I was like that. I was spread eagle on the ground, hollering, Lord, have mercy. I know you got something for me. I know you got grace. I know you got love, but I'm looking for mercy and all about in here. So I wasn't really able to participate in the museum in the ways that I would have liked to have. But anytime Ashley calls, and I have the time, I'm on tap for that because I love doing what I do, and I love promoting the mission of this museum. Because I didn't start out telling you who my ancestors were, but I could because I come out of a long line of big city women. And this quilt is actually entitled Big City Woman. It was created as a studio quilt by a very good friend of mine by the name of Jacqueline Hughes Mooney. And it was one of the first of this particular series, and she has done a very long series since this, and has become quite well known in the studio quilters world. She started right here in San Diego making pillows. There were covers for pillows, but I looked at her and I said, there's no way this is gonna go on a pillow. Nobody gonna put their on this, their head or anything else. It was gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful. And so I encouraged her to enlarge them, and people really jumped on that, and she has done very well since. But Big City Women was a concept that she introduced. And when I first saw it, I thought, that's interesting. She's got hips. I can relate to that. She obviously got a chest. I can relate to that. And she got wild, wild hair. And arms stretched out to the world. I can relate to all of that. And so I started thinking, okay, what kind of stories can come out of that? All of our stories. Because no matter whether you come from a little bitty town, way up in the country, or you come from a big megatropolis, everyone is a big city woman. Because big city women are, let me see. A big city woman will wear sequins on Tuesday to the grocery store after she has dabbed her favorite perfume behind her ears. Because the little guy who bags the groceries is her friend. And he is not just little. He's a dwarf. He's a little person. And she just knows that this little man has got the biggest heart in the world. But he didn't grow up hearing that. So when she steps out the door on Tuesday morning to go get her groceries, she's going to dress up for her little man. And that's exactly what she calls him. Little man, what you got for me today? I know you got a story. And he look up at her and say, yes, ma'am. Let me tell you what I did yesterday. You know, you told me that I could. And he'd go on to tell her all the things that he had done because she told him he could do them. Like ride a motorcycle. He found somebody to, what you call that, augment a motorcycle so that his feet would touch everything and his arms could hold on to everything, and he was in control. Woo-hoo! Let me tell you, you couldn't tell him nothing. As my grandma would say, you couldn't hit him in the butt with a rotten apple. Because he was just so proud of himself. You know somebody like that?
No, I love the idea of it.
Okay, that's good, that's good. Because you see, we're used to an amen corner up here. All of us, you know, we used to hearing somebody say amen, or yeah, that's right. Or, you know, it's called call and response. Remember, I told you a story means nothing if there's no one out there to hear it. And then, of course, there's the response. So there's the heart space that must be touched. So there's the heads that nod and the feet that pat and the voices that sing, Okay, that's good. Just a little bit louder. All right, that's good. We're getting there. We're getting there. So when I think of a big city woman, I think of somebody like the character Celie in Alice Walker's The Color Purple. Because she looked into the face of her worst enemy in life. And she threw back her shoulders and just stuck out her chest and she said, yeah, but I'm still here.
Right.
And that's what a big city woman does. Oh yeah, because big city women start out as little children. Somebody's baby. Somebody's sweet little darling child. I know I did. Didn't
Well.
you?
Oh, yeah.
And you done already told us that you did, so. And we know about Big Mama Mabel, so, yeah, so we know that we all start out as little children. But what happens in between here and here?
Uh-oh.
Well, that's the story of a big city woman. And there's always a poem. There's always a poem that goes along with each stage of growth and development. And what happens between here and here very often is the question. What if? Have you ever asked that question? What if I had gone to the prom with, instead of, what if I had had my first kiss with, instead of, what if I had saved half of my paycheck ever since I started working, instead of what I did with it? What if?
What if? What if? That's a big word. It's a big word. I've often thought about it. And when I think about it, I think about if bluebirds sang at midnight, if standards and values were not new, if words were used only to create, if good never had to compromise, if families loved each other, if people expected nothing in return, if trust and hope meant I will and I can, if I could see beyond my limitations, if the bad guy never won, if excuses were not a way of life, if parents had control, if children could spell R-E-S-P-E-C-T, if the sun never set, if love never lied, if violence was not a word, if neighbors talked, if color were not a factor, if television was positive, if politicians really understood, what if were no more? Sometimes I wonder.
It will put you on the wonder, won't it?
Yeah.
It really will. But you know, there's certain points in history when you know that if was not an issue. And I'm thinking about a big city woman who started as a slave in Virginia, in the country, on the plantation, whose name we all know now, Harriet Tubman. She was known as the premier conductor on the Underground Railroad. There was no if in her mind. There were no ifs, there were no ands, there were no buts. She was not going to be a slave. And she would find her way to freedom. And she did.
Right.
But when she turned and looked around, she realized that she had left many behind. And if was not a factor, she would go back. And she would help those that were willing to come to freedom, willing to sacrifice, willing to take this thing called freedom and recognize that it was a debt at the door that they had to pay. And that the fire would go out and their bellies would cackle, and yet they would have to continue on. So it was not a factor. When she went back once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 17, 19 times. And on each journey, she made it clearly understood. If was not a factor. You will not stop. You will not turn back. You will die if you choose not to go forward. And she had a pistol in her pocket to help them understand
Right now.
that if was not a factor. And what I love about this big city woman is she was humble to the nth degree. And when it came time for her to stop making those trips on the Underground Railroad, she melted into history as peaceful as a dove, working in a place of servitude, because that was her labor of love. So for some, if is not a factor. However, there are some that just have to take it and chew it the way it comes, don't they? I know you got something for us. What you got?
What do I have? Well, I just think about life, and I was thinking about the dichotomy of life.
Ooh, that's a big word, isn't it?
You know, it's that thing you talked about where you turned left and you turned right, and but for the grace of the Almighty, you could have stumbled further than you might have thought you would ever stumble. Like this. Fur coats hear operatic notes, and outside the hungry are crying. Inside, Othello's in love with the queen. Outside, the princess is dying. Big cars go to fancy bars and indulge in alcohol, cigarettes, and cigars. Shopping carts, they stop and they start by trash cans filled with aluminum salaries. Oh, for the calories of a burger meal deal and a new rubber wheel. Fancy clothes and no run pantyhose. Fashion's a passion for many, but fabric doesn't match and shoes need a patch when your clothes budget's only a penny. Helpless and prestigious, living to work and working to live. Tragedies and inequities. People are in pain, struggling, living without shelter, and sleeping in the rain. Mysterious and delirious, this problem will remain. And words play in books, so great for the brain, but for some, they are just fuel for the flame to keep your hands held tight over another freezing night. And we look for the blame, and we turn our heads in shame. But believe it or not, we're all part of this game.
Brings to mind a big city woman that I knew. She just passed away not long ago. And for a year of my life, she was an incredible part of it. I'll call her Miss A. Miss A, when I met her, was a very erect, standing, frail, withered woman who had once been beautiful. Actually, she still was beautiful. It was just that the beauty had changed. There were a few more creases in it, and there was a little more wisdom to the hair, and there were a few less teeth. In fact, she only had one. She really only had one tooth left. But she stood with such dignity, and she dressed completely out of the Salvation Army. But she was one of the most stylish people that I have ever known. She would wear blouses that would ordinarily have an open collar, but she would take a piece of yarn and make a bolo out of it. A fashion statement. I'd look at her and say, girl, where you get that? And she had made it herself. There were so many things about her. She would wear the little plastic shoes that we see these days. But she would wear them with argyle socks. And when it was sometimes far too hot to even think about a fur coat, she would come out with her fur coat on because she was frail and she was always cold. And what I didn't realize when I first met her was that she was usually hungry. We got to know each other, and as it happened, she needed housing because she had been in a position where she had pushed a cart. And because of certain situations in our society, very, very, very wealthy people having to give up some of their money, and then they filtered it down to the county, and then they filtered it down to a subcontractor, we were able, from my agency, to give her housing and to see to it that she got food. And we were supposed to help her get medical help, but now let me tell you something. Miss A was not having it. She said, I've seen too many doctors, I've seen too many deaths. She said, I'm just gonna go out the way I go out. Now, me being a nurse, that was hard, because I'm used to fixing stuff, fixing folks, taking them someplace where they can get what they need and be robust. And she said, that's all right, this is the way I want it. And she began to tell me her story. She had been raised she'd been born in Los Angeles on the west side of town. Now mind you, she was in her 80s, so on the west side of town in her time meant that she was born to a class of people that had money. And she was afforded a very fine education, at least as far as high school was concerned. And in those days, if you got through high school, you had gotten a very good education. And of course, she married. Well, according to her father's choice, she had married well. But he didn't know that her husband was an alcoholic. And so therefore, whatever they tried to amass together, it just never quite happened. They would just miss it, just a little bit. So she never really had all of the things that she might have liked to have had given by her husband. But oh, Daddy, Daddy wasn't gonna see his baby suffer. So he moved, she and he, now married to one another, to Laguna Beach, to their summer house on the beach. Well, let me tell you, the summer house was no cottage. The summer house was a serious house overlooking the water. And she then began to embrace the artistic community. And she would have salons, and she knew many of the actors and painters of the day. And she lived quite a wonderful life until that husband drank himself to death and her father died. And now she had one child and a sickly mother to take care of. So she buckled herself up, got herself a job at Sears. Oh no, she got herself a job at I. Magnus. In those days, I. Magnus was as Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom's is today, and Saks Fifth Avenue. And so she worked, she said, first she started working selling ribbons. Can you imagine? Selling ribbons. But in those days, there was a big market for ribbons, because there was ribbons on everything. If you know, in those days, that was kind of like the time when Coco Chanel came around, and everybody had ribbons and they did wonderful things with them. And so she started selling ribbons. And in due time, she met another man, and they got married. Well, she didn't have very good luck with this one either, because even though he loved her dearly, he soon became ill, and she had to take care of him and her sickly mother. And they died within a short time of one another. And by this time, she was tired. Her son was grown though. Her son had grown because he grew up in that artistic community there in Laguna Beach. He himself was an artist, very fine artist. And he went on to college, and he, by the time I met her, was teaching art in one of the colleges in the Midwest. But I had to take a health history on her. So we would do this in increments. She couldn't eat certain foods because she didn't have any teeth, and so we would go to the places that she liked to go and we would have lunch. And in having lunch, I would ask her the questions on the health questionnaire. So I asked her, well, what happened to your teeth? And she proceeded to tell me that because of all of the stress that she had been under when she took care of her ailing mother and her ailing husband and was getting her son off to college, she came down with this peculiar malady. Now, if she had been a person to go to doctors, or if they had even discovered the diagnosis at that time, they might have called it fibromyalgia or a chronic stress syndrome or chronic fatigue. But whatever it was, she couldn't shake it. And then she caught the flu. Now, you know, in those days before flu vaccine, the flu could take you out of here very quickly. And though it didn't take her out, it put her down for a long time. And when she was finally able to get up, all of her teeth were loose. And eventually they all came out except for the one. And I said, well, Miss A, why didn't you have the one pulled out? She said, I wanted to remember when I had the rest of it. That's a good enough answer for me. So we would continue down the health questionnaire, and I got to the point where I thought I could just check this one off. I said, now you've had one child, right? I was ready to check it. And she stiffened her back and her face turned a chalky color. And I knew that there was a story and a lot of emotion under that. So I just sat there with her for a while, sipping my iced tea, and finally she said, well, that's the one that I was allowed to keep. I said, oh, did you give birth to others? She said, no, that was the one I was allowed to give birth to. I said, allowed? And this is the story that she told. She said, you know, I've been taking care of my mother ever since I was a baby. I remember once, she had this little shot glass, and I thought it was so cute. And one day I took it and I turned it up because there was a drop of something brown in the bottom and I wanted to taste it. And it burned my tongue. But my mother always had that shot glass. Only she put it in a bigger cup and she'd fill it up with other stuff. But there was lots of times when I had to go get the shot glass and go get what she put in the shot glass for her because she couldn't go herself. But she was a good mother. I know she loved me. I know she loved me. But when I got married, something happened. I know she was a good mother. I know she loved me, but she wouldn't let me have the children that I conceived. I conceived one more after my son. And she said, you've got to get rid of it. And then I conceived another. And she said, you got to get rid of that. And so I did what she told me to do. What I didn't know was she was having an affair with my husband. And she was jealous of the children that I could have, that she couldn't. Well, needless to say, there was a long silence after that. My heart ached, my eyes filled with hot water, but I couldn't let them spill down. She was sitting there straight as a ramrod. But I reached out and I touched her hand, and she drew her hand back, and she said, I have to go now. And she wouldn't see me again for weeks. And finally, I called her son just to find out if he had heard from her, and he said that he hadn't. course, I never told him that story, but it started to help me understand why she pushed everyone away that wanted to love her. Because it has somehow gotten twisted in her head that the people that love you are the people that hurt you the most. All I can say is that I loved her. And I loved her just like she was, living in a little box of a room, paying $550 a month, and bringing in everything that she could put her hands on that would allow her to make something for her great-grandchildren. Pieces of yarn, pieces of fabric, stuffed animals, books, coloring books, crayons. And that was what filled her room to the point of us not being able to open the door when she didn't answer it after 3 days of trying. She wouldn't allow anyone from the hotel where she lived to come in to clean. And when I knocked on the door and I looked down and I saw pushed from inside to the out a check not made out and some brochures from the grocery store with coupons and a little piece of note paper not written on. I knew that I couldn't open the door. And so I called 911, and sure enough, that's where she took her last breath. Alone, filled with the things that she could trust that wouldn't hurt her. Miss A was a big city woman, and I learned from her, whatever the hurts are, do your best to let them go. Because you're going to die one way or the other.
All right.
And you get a chance to make a choice
That's good.
as to whether you die with or without the comfort that you seek. Miss A, she was a big city woman.
All right.
You know, Miss A was going places, though.
Oh, yeah.
She was going places, and I think a lot of us go places. Matter of fact, one of the places you went to today was where? Here.
Yeah.
Okay? But sometimes we're going places nowhere fast. You ever done that? Go places nowhere fast? Well, this young man went places nowhere fast. Steam clean my mind with the blues. Wake up the sounds to less is better than nothing. Political debates rage hot and heavy, but make little sense to the man on the corner asking for a dime. Going nowhere fast, going nowhere fast. Over there in that dark, cold alley, someone yelled, "If you feel my pain, please let me die." People rushing to the next stoplight only to find the next stoplight. The man in the moon sings a moaning lullaby of forgotten dreams while children watch cartoons. Time is irrelevant to a young life trying to understand how just say no will keep them safe. Going nowhere fast, going nowhere fast. Why wait for tomorrow when you can buy fresh synthetic love today? Still, the tick-tock of time presses together want and greed. Babies cry because the drug dealer has no milk today. Behind the clouds, chocolate cities keep pressing the limits of a world gone mad, constantly seeking for a reason not to burn this mother down to the ground. Does anybody care? Does anybody see? Going nowhere fast, going nowhere fast. going nowhere.
Sometimes we get where we're going.
Sometimes. Sometimes we are.
Where we're
Where we
going.
You know, because when I was thinking about Miss A, you know, it reminded me of those thoughts I have about home. You know, because that we're always seeking. And sometimes we're right where we are supposed to be, you know. It's like this. Maybe it's like this.
I hope it's like
Maybe it's
this.
not like this.
Now you got us ready to be like this.
See, it's like, I've been searching for home all my life. All my life. I know I've been close as a daughter, a mother, and a wife, but as time passes on, the essence of home is more than four walls, a kitchen and halls. It's a safe place where my inner face rests, where inner peace abounds. Oh, well, I know it sounds a little dreamy, but all my life I've been looking for home. And now I know that it's here. See, it's the wind against my face and the sun on my back, my eyes closed in prayer. The essence of home is everywhere. It lives in the heart where love rests and waits for that chance to come out and celebrate. It lives in the eyes of the children, in the wings of the bird, the ears of a rabbit. So let's spread the word. The essence of home is a feeling of calm. It's a warm embers from the fire next to hot bread baking. Take your shoes off and rest. Your spirit feels best when it lives in the essence of home. All my life, I've been searching for home. But the essence is here. It's familiar. It's clear. It's happy and I smile. Home, it was with me all the while.
Checkmate.
Checkmate.
All right now.
Checkmate.
See, you, okay, you want to go there.
You do you? Well,
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's
What?
just sometimes, you know, you get the mate, then you get the checkmate, then you got to start the game all over
I
again.
think so.
Yeah, so let's
You
hear
think
about
life is a chess game?
I think so.
Really?
I do.
You do.
Either that or a dance. Let's try the checkmate first.
All right, all right.
Really?
You're strong, you'll survive.
Says man. I know, says I. Which thing I could be that weak Scarlet O'Hara saved me, that butler woman that would cause him to stay.
You're strong.
He says. But who wants to be strong alone? Says I. What about the warm me? Soft, passionate, waiting to be surrounded by strong arms, smothered with soft kisses. Where does she go for help?
You'll survive.
Says man. Yes, I know I can, but I thought that life and love were more than just a chess game when you yell
Checkmate.
and leave the queen to stand alone without the comfort of her king.
But life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it,
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
places with no carpet on the floor.
All right now.
Bad. But I'm still climbing
Yes, girl.
and reaching landings and turning corners. So don't you give up, because you find the going's kind of tough. You keep on going, because I can tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair.
Uh-oh.
But even if it had been, I'd have stubbed my toe. You know, because I'm just always in my own self's way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know about you. You probably have. See, I know I can look at you. I can look at you and tell. And you, oh yeah, see, you got that kind of curvy eyebrow. See, I know you. See, you never did this. You never stepped in your own self's shadow. Oh, but oh my goodness, I have on many occasions. For instance, When I went on my first date, I was so stupid. I didn't know nothing. I thought I did because my grandmama had set me down and my auntie had set me down and my mama had set me down and my cousin had set me down and they said, girl, don't you do this, don't you do that, don't you do that. Keep your legs shut, keep your, keep your dress down, keep your drawers up, all that. Oh, y'all didn't never learn that.
Some of it didn't.
Well, I guess I didn't believe them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm not even going to tell you the rest of the story. It's just so sad. But if I hadn't had my children early, I guess I don't have to tell you the rest of the story. Maybe I wouldn't be the person that I am today. I'm not sure. Because I had that kind of spirit that was just, how far can we go today? Don't worry if I got any food or any water, just let me see what I can see. Oh, ain't that pretty? Boom! Hit the ground. That's just the way I was as a young woman. But there was something, always something, that would keep me afloat, keep me from completely sinking to the bottom. I was 18, and I had 2 children. And I was still living in my grandmama's house. That just lets you know what kind of grandmama and grandpapa I had. But it was time for me to do something for myself. And you know why I finally got it? It wasn't because of what everybody had told me. It wasn't even about the things I had read, because I was very intelligent in the books. I just didn't have no mother with. I had read lots of books, but it was a song. And I don't believe I don't remember whether it was Dinah Washington or Sarah Vaughan or which one of them I heard, but it was, them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it still is news. Your mama may have, and your papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. And so I decided at that time it was time for me to get my act together. So I got me a job. Now in those days, you couldn't even get a job at Woolworths selling ribbons, not if you had my color skin. And they were still picketing at the telephone company to try to get a job to do anything more than sweeping the floors. But over at Patton State Hospital in San Bernardino, sorry, y'all don't know about that? Well, this was in the time when they had a serious state hospital system. It may not have been the best, but you didn't see people out on the street talking to themselves and digging in trash cans because they had a mental illness. Anyway, that's another story.
Yeah.
However, they were hiring psychiatric technician trainees. Big job in them days, paid $281 a month before taxes. And I passed the test. I couldn't pass a typing test. So I just couldn't. I could dance. I had good rhythm, but I could not type without a mistake to save me. So I went to Patton State Hospital where I didn't have to pass a typing test. And I sailed through that stuff. Oh, it was just like a duck thrown in the water. I had no idea that I was a healer. There had never been any indication before. I had torn up everything I could in the past. I wasn't aware of healing anything. But this was the gift. When those schizophrenic clients, we called them patients in those days, they were in the hospital, but they were schizophrenic and they didn't have any medication for them except Thorazine and Stelazine and Cogentin. And the cogentin was to take care of the side effects of the thorazine or stelazine. And they still was using hydrotherapy, which was one of the better ones, and electric shock therapy. Not as humane as it is today. But because I had this particular gift that I didn't understand was a gift, they would put me on the backboards. Now that was with the folks that had very little control over anything. What they thought, what they said, what they did, and how their bodies functioned. So they would put me back there. And come to find out, I was good with them. Now, I never told anybody this because I was concerned about them taking my keys. But they had a language that they would speak. They called it word salad. I can't reproduce it for you, but I can tell you this. They spoke in pictures. They talked about the things that they saw, and it may have been fragmented, but if you could just catch the thread, you could begin to understand. Well, I understood what they were talking about. And consequently, if they were asking me for some toothpaste because they had run out, or a toothbrush because they had flushed it down the toilet, and they told me the story in bits and pieces, and I finally showed up with a toothbrush and some toothpaste, they thought I could walk on water. So consequently, I listened, and I responded. Now I couldn't tell anybody that, because as I say, they would have taken my keys and I might have ended up behind one of those locked doors myself. So I just kept building on the gift. So I went to school and I became a nurse. Now I never was able to tolerate uncontrolled body fluids. So medical surgical nursing was not for me. So back to the psychiatric hospitals I went. And now I was a hot shot. Had me a hat with a big old black stripe over it. And I pinned it to the back of my head, and I was going through there like I had wings.
Sounds like a big city woman.
That was a big city woman, let me tell you. Because by now I had moved from San Bernardino to Los Angeles, to the Neuropsychiatric Institute at UCLA. A teaching hospital, don't you know? Well, that was where I really learned about racism. Now you would think I would have learned it in a Riverside, little Southern California town, because you know that the Mason-Dixon line runs straight across the country. And Riverside was below. It was south. It was a serious Southern town. We lived on one side, folks that it was class though. I mean, you know, Mexican, American, colored, we was colored in those days, Japanese, Chinese, Irish. People that didn't have any money lived on this side of the tracks. Other people lived on the other. But I didn't get it. We had everything we needed. So it was when I went to Westwood that I really understood what racism was all about. It was quite a fascinating experience. But that's where I think I started to grow up. Because me and my two little kids, by now I had grown up enough for my grandmother to decide that I had sense enough to take my kids and I could live someplace out from underneath her roof. We were living in Los Angeles. Whew. In the 60s. Woo-hoo! That's where I learned about racism, and that's where I learned about Black pride. It was an incredible time. The time of the Black Panthers on one side of town and the US organization on the other. And everyone in between learning what they wanted to learn and what they didn't want to learn about what it meant to be Black in the United States of America. It was a fascinating time. And
It didn't change that much. That's how I get the black on blue blues, you know.
oh,
Don't you know?
yeah, because the blues were obviously a part of it. Always, always. You could always come up with the blues.
Person of color in America without getting the blues. You know.
What you got to say?
I get the black on blue blues.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Have you heard about the black on blue blues? Oh Lord, I feel it way down in my shoes. You see, every day when I pick up the news, I get these black on blue blues. See, education, integration, segregation, war, racism, racism in war, war against race, a war against my race, brothers in combat face to face. I mean, have you heard about the black on blue blues? Oh Lord, I feel them way deep in my shoes. See, the children, my children, black children, are in the news. They are dying in the streets, and I'm black on blue, and people say stop, you know, and people say go, and people pray to the Lord, I love you so, but we go to church, and children, they're suffering, and I'm black on blue. See, have you heard about these black on blue blues? See, I feel them way down in my shoes, and so many blacks who get put up high in a place to save our face. The system tells them what to do, and then my hope and pride are hurt. I'm still black on blue. Have you heard about these black on blue blues? Oh Lord, I feel them way down in my shoes, and my feet ache so when I walk, and my heart hurts so when I hear the talk, and I'm tired, and I'm angry, and my spirit's confused because I'm battling these blue, black on blue blues. Still.
Well,
Do men get the blues?
oh, Lord.
I never thought men got the blues.
Well,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
I knew they did.
we don't like to talk about it.
I know.
It's one of
Y'all
those
can think about
stories, yeah, that we don't like to talk about because we have to be strong, because we have to survive.
Ah, like that, huh?
Yeah, it's like that. But when we get the blues, it's pretty much because of one of y'all.
Oh! Ouch! And it's our fault too.
And for about half a minute, we swear we're not going there anymore.
Yeah, no more.
Well, we first start off with we're not going there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you had some friendship with probably a pint to a half a pint, you know, you say mo, because you don't have the strength. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You can't figure out the rest of the word, so you say mo. Because love don't live here anymore. The night is long and my arms are empty. Eyes never dry, can't seem to catch my breath. My body is limp and my head hanging down all the time. Got that lost, lonely, what the hell went wrong? Lost love blues. No way back. Every night like clockwork, the telephone rings and rings to a message saying, if this is Lamont, talk to the hand and keep your black ass out of my life. Anyone else? Please call back. Lonely moments seem like dog-day weeks. Broken glass on my picture frame makes a statement of pain, regret, and I told you so's. Is there any way back? This can't be the end. The signs of loss, broken. Is it really over or all around? Time to look to the moon and sing that song. I've been crying, I've been hurting, my heart been broken, 'cause love, L-O-V-E, love, don't live here anymore.
There's some big city women.
That's what a big
Billie
city.
Holiday.
That's what a big city woman did.
Uh-huh.
But there's some big city women. Billie Holiday, Josephine Baker. You know, the blues is not gender specific, don't you think?
Hello.
Because, you know,
All
I would
right.
differ to say is that
All right.
the blues ain't nothing but a woman crying for her man.
Oh,
Yes.
let's hear about that.
You see,
Are you listening?
the blues ain't nothing but a woman crying for her man. I mean, every woman can. And this blue is not the light and airy sky blue. It is the deep, dark, lost my lover in the night. What am I to do, blue? Ain't it true? No hands to reach out to, no safe place to be found when the love that was yours is through blues. And time is really not the issue here. A 2-minute love can cause a tear, but those loves that last throughout the years, they can create a mystery, a symphony of pain and misery. You see, she's crying for her man and she can't understand it's true. Even though the love is gone, those feelings keep on keeping on. And sisters crying blue, sisters crying blue. I don't know what to do about the miss you, love you, so sad but true. The girl is blue, blue, blue.
But you know, many survive.
Yes.
Actually, they thrive.
Well,
Time goes on and things change and life continues and we move from glory to glory. If you understand where I'm coming from. And it isn't that all big city women are senior women. But the more senior you are, the sweeter it is. And I'm so blessed to be around some senior women. I have a woman in my church congregation whose name is Mother Alberta Jett. And Mother Jett will admit to being 95. But she says, you know, the rest of it, I done forgot about it, so you may as well too. And she comes to church tippy-toeing in her little silver shoes with a silver hat cocked to the side. And she is a sweetheart, a sweetheart. She just stopped singing in the choir a couple of years ago because her asthma got too bad. But if she were here, I know she would encourage me to tell you, because she's done this in the past, that there's just some things you ought not to forget. There's some situations that if you didn't know about them, you need to learn about them, and then you need to teach them to somebody else. Because life doesn't really change that much. I mean, there's changes, and there's changes, and there's changes, and then there's some more changes, but when you get to the other end of the change that you started out looking for, you find there's another change to be gone through. And she wanted me to, she loved this story. And she wanted me to make sure that I told her. Because some of you do not know who Brer Rabbit is, don't you? So, oh, y'all know? Y'all don't know? Oh, y'all all know Brer Rabbit. Do you know him back there? Tell the truth. You, see, I knew it was somebody in here didn't know Brer Rabbit. Well, you can't go out of here like that. You just can't. Because, you see, if Brer Rabbit were here, he would tell you himself. I am a little piece of leather, but I am well put together. Which only means that he, even though he's small, doesn't have a lot, but he's fast and he's smart. And he can outthink and outmaneuver most of the bigger animals in the forest. And he was always doing it. And you know, there was a time in the forest when this world was still new. All the animals could talk to each other. And they got along, most in general, pretty good too. But this one season, it was very much something that we have just gone through, but it just broke up a little bit because we got a little bit of rain. But it had been a long, dry spell. There was no rain, there was no frost, there was no dew, there was no snow, there was no ice, there was no fog, there was nothing. And everything was dried up and cracked up and parched up, dry as a powder keg. And of course, when there's no rain, there's no water to drink and there's no food to eat. And the animals were going to bed hungry and thirsty at night. Well, the older animals, they had been through such cycles before, and they knew that it would eventually change, but the babies, oh, the babies were suffering something terrible. I mean, they were going to bed at night with their little tongues stuck to the roof of their mouth because it was so dry, and their bellies was just cackling, and they was crying and whining, and they couldn't sleep, and the mama and papa animals was fretting and carrying on, and finally Papa Bear said, I can't take it no longer. We got to do something. We just got to do something. I can't take it. My babies ain't got no food, they ain't got no water, they cried at night. I just can't take it. My nerves is frazzled. So he called the animal convention. Called all the animals together because he figured that surely out of all the animals, they would be able to get one idea that would get them some food and water. Called them all together, but don't you know it's a very strange thing when you ain't had enough water to drink or enough food to eat, your brain don't work right. They couldn't come up with one single thought, one single idea, but all the animals didn't come. Brer Rabbit was not there. So Bear said, we're gonna go. We're gonna go tomorrow morning. We're gonna go to see Brer Rabbit, and he gonna give us an idea because he practically always has a good idea about things. Will y'all go with me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So bright and early the next morning, they all went over to Brer Rabbit's house. And when they got to the door, they knocked on the door. Knock, 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 knock. No answer. Knock, 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 knock. No answer. Knock, 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 knock. Said Brer Rabbit, waking up out of a deep sleep. Who is this at my door at this hour of the morning? I didn't expect no company. Open the door and howdy. How y'all doing today? Didn't expect no company. What y'all want this unearthly hour of the morning? Bro Bear spoke up. He said, well, you see, we didn't mean to upset you, and we didn't want to break your rest, but you see, we got a problem. There ain't been no rain, and there's no food, and there's no water, and our baby's been going to bed hungry and thirsty at night, and so we thought maybe you might have an idea that would help us. No food, no water, what y'all talking about? I was just over to the old Clayton place. It was a great big old pear tree loaded down with big old juicy pears and little old bubbling brook. Food, water, we didn't know nothing about it. We didn't know nothing about it at all. Would you take us? Would you take us right now? He said, sure. Just let me floss my teeth. And no sooner than he got through flossing his teeth, he said, come on, y'all. We going over to the old Clayton place. So off they went to the old Clayton place, and sure enough, when they got there, a little old bubbling brook, a great big old tree loaded down with juicy pears. Them animals saw that brook, saw them pears. They cut and started running right straight for that tree. And just as soon as Sister Possum was getting ready to put a little possum paw on one of them juicy pears, up out of the tall grass sprang two great big green eyes, a big mouth full of jagged teeth, said, ah! Get away from that pear tree! Get away from that brook! You can't have none of that! It all belongs to me! Oh, Brother Tackle, we didn't mean no harm, really. We just wanted some food and water for our babies. They've been going to bed hungry and thirsty. And I don't care nothing about your babies! They don't look like my babies. Why should I care anything about them anyhow? Y'all trespassing. And if you don't get off of my property, I'll eat you. Nobody came there to get ate that day. So they turned around and went back to Brer Rabbit's house, and let me tell you, a sadder, more depressed and dejected group of animals you have never seen. And Brer Rabbit tried everything he could to cheer him up, but it wasn't nothing working. So finally he said, well, listen, y'all, bright and early, crack of dawn tomorrow, y'all come back. I got an idea. Ain't nobody going to bed hungry and thirsty tomorrow. So they went back home, but didn't nobody go to rest or sleep, nothing, because they didn't want to miss the crack of dawn. And when dawn cracked, they was right back there, knock, 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 knocking at Brer Rabbit's door. And he opened the door and said, hey, y'all, glad y'all here, right on time, too. And he had a great big old vine rope around his shoulder. He said, and you, Brer Bear, I'm so glad you brought that big old stick of yours. Oh, you got the Bear Clan with you, too? Good. Listen up. When we get to the old Clayton place, I got a plan. You, Brother Bear and all the Bear Clan, I'm going to find some stumps. And when I give the high sign, I want you to beat on them old stumps with your stick. Bigger bam, bigger bam, bigger bam, for all you're worth. And you, the Alligator Clan, I'm going to find you some old hollow logs. and you get in them logs, and you watch for the sign, and when I give the sign, you beat on the logs with inside them logs with your tail. Bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom. And you, the eagle clan, I'm putting you in the tippy top of the trees. I want you to make them trees just a bend and a shake. And you, the snakes, put you in the grass. I want you to make that grass just a shimmy and a shake when I give that high sign. So off they went tippy-toeing to the old Clayton place. And when they got there, the sun was just barely peeking up over the hills, you know, like kind of pinkish gray like in the early morning. They all got in their place. And when they was in their places, Brer Rabbit broke out into the loudest, most off-key singing you can ever imagine. Oh, there's a great big wind coming, gonna blow everybody off the earth. Oh, I say there's a great big wind coming, gonna blow everybody off the earth. Said Red Tiger waking up out of a deep sleep. Who is that making all that rat? Kid, a great big wind coming. Gonna blow everybody off the earth. What you talking about, Brer Rabbit? What you talking about? He said, oh, haven't you heard? Oh, yeah, there's a great big wind fixing to come. It's going to blow everybody off the face of the earth. I'm sorry I don't have time to talk to you right now, Brer Tiger. You see, I got this big old rope. I'm getting ready to go down the road and tie up all my little defenseless friends so they won't blow off the face of the earth. And he made like he was getting ready to leave. And Brer Tiger said, but hold it, just a minute. I don't quite understand. You're going to tie them up and you're not going to tie me up. And about that time, he gave the high sign behind his back. And the bears started beating on them stumps. Bick-a-bam, bick-a-bam, bick-a-bam. And the alligators started beating on the inside of them logs. Bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom. And the eagles made the trees bend and shake, and the snakes made the grass just a shimmy and a shake, and that tiger's eyes like to popped out of his head. There's a big wind coming. It's fixing to blow everybody off the face of the earth. You got to tie me up first, Brer Rabbit. You got to tie me up first. He said, oh, well, I don't know if I have enough time or enough rope. He said, if you don't tie me up, I'll eat you. He said, well, if you put it that way, on one condition, you got to lay out straight and stiff as a board. Well, Brer Tiger laid out straight and stiff between a stump and a tree, and Brer Rabbit commenced to tie him. And he tied his neck, and he tied his neck, and he tied his neck. He said, is that tight enough now, Brer Tiger? He said, no, I don't think so. Then tie a little bit tighter. He tied, and he wrapped, and he tied. He said, is that tight enough now, Brer Tiger? Yeah, now tie my feet. And he wrapped, and he tied, and he wrapped, and he tied, and he wrapped, and he tied his feet. He said, is that tight enough now, Brer Tiger? He said, yeah, I don't think no wind can blow me off the face of the earth now. Brer Rabbit said, me neither. Hey, y'all, come here. Look and see what I got. And they got there, they couldn't help it. They had good manners, but they couldn't help themselves. They saw that, they started laughing. They laughed till they couldn't laugh no more. And then they took their buckets and they got water, and they took their sacks and they got pears, and they went home, and nobody went to bed hungry and thirsty that night. But bright and early that morning, Brer Bear opened up his eyes. He said, oh, I plumb forgot my manners. I completely forgot to thank Brer Rabbit for that idea. Sister Alligator, did you think? You didn't thank him either. Eagles, did you? Snakes, nobody thanked him. You know, we don't do business like that. We always thank one another for what we do for each other. We got to go back. It's just as simple as that. We got to go back. So when we went back, of course, they knocked on the door. And Brer Rabbit opened the door and said, well, I'm kind of tired, y'all, from all that work he did yesterday, but what y'all want today? What y'all want today? And Brer Bear spoke up. He said, well, you see, we completely forgot to thank you for that idea that you gave us, that gave us food and water yesterday, and we had to thank you. And Brer Rabbit was like this. Y'all probably don't know nobody like this. He was a little bitty guy, but he had a great big old heart, like a big old mushy marshmallow, and he didn't want nobody to know. So he was all tough and brash on the outside. Oh, that's all right, y'all don't owe me nothing. It wasn't but a old idea. But Sister Alligator found her voice, and she said, yes, sir, it was an idea. But you are the one who brought us together to make the idea work. Now, as long ago as that was, I think we have just seen evidence of the fact that it is still true today. In our homes, in our communities, in our states, in our countries, this entire world. An idea don't mean nothing if folks don't come together to make it work. But what do I know? I'm just a storyteller. And I stepped on the nail, and the nail bent, and that's the way the story went. Big City Women.